The moment the campus security guard grabbed her arm and demanded she explain where she stole the medal from, every student in the crowded quad turned to watch. Phones already recording, assumptions already forming. And not one of them realized they were witnessing a decorated Navy SEAL being publicly humiliated by someone who had never served a day in his life. The morning had started like any other at Ridgemont University, the kind of quiet California campus where military history existed only in textbooks, and the closest most students got to service was watching recruitment ads during football games. The quad hummed with its usual energy, backpacks slung over shoulders, coffee cups clutched like lifelines, conversations blending into background noise as students moved between classes under a sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. Ava Mercer sat alone on a stone bench near the fountain, her civilian clothes deliberately unremarkable, faded jeans, a simple gray hoodie, running shoes worn soft from miles of use. Her dark hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, and her posture, though relaxed, carried a subtle precision most people wouldn't notice. She wasn't hiding exactly, just existing in a space where no one expected to find her. The Navy Achievement Medal hung from a thin chain around her neck, resting just above her collarbone. It wasn't flashy, wasn't large, but it caught the light when she moved, the bronze star and ribbon drawing the occasional curious glance from passing students who didn't recognize what they were seeing. She had worn it intentionally today, not for pride, not for recognition, but because she was meeting someone later, a former teammate's sister, a freshman struggling to adjust, and sometimes the only way to prove you understand is to show you've been there too. The campus security guard noticed her from across the quad. His name was Derek Hollis, mid-40s, heavy-set, the kind of man whose authority extended only as far as the badge clipped to his belt, but who wielded it like it meant more. He had been working campus security for 6 years, long enough to develop a sharp eye for things that didn't belong, or at least, things he thought didn't belong. And the moment he saw the medal around Ava's neck, something in him clicked into place. Suspicion, immediate and certain. He started walking toward her, his stride purposeful, drawing the attention of a few students nearby who sensed something about to happen. Ava didn't notice him at first. She was reading, her focus locked on the pages in front of her, her breathing slow and controlled, the kind of calm that only comes from years of learning how to manage everything beneath the surface. "Excuse me," Hollis said, stopping directly in front of her, his shadow falling across the open book. Ava looked up slowly, her expression neutral. "Yes. Where'd you get that?" He gestured sharply toward the medal. She glanced down briefly, then back at him. "It was awarded to me." Hollis let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Right? You expect me to believe that?" Around them, students began to slow their pace, conversations tapering off as attention shifted toward the confrontation. A few phones came out, screens tilting discreetly upward. Ava closed the book carefully, setting it beside her. "I don't expect anything. I'm just telling you the truth." "Sure you are." Hollis stepped closer, his tone hardening. "You know what that is? That's a military medal. And unless you served, which I seriously doubt, you've got no business wearing it." Her gaze didn't waver. "I did serve." "Oh yeah." He crossed his arms, leaning in slightly, voice rising just enough to ensure the growing audience could hear. "What branch?" "Navy." "Navy," he repeated, mockery threading through the word. "Let me guess. You were a clerk? Admin. Maybe you worked in supply." A murmur rippled through the crowd, quiet but present, students exchanging glances, some smirking, others uncomfortable but not intervening. Ava's voice remained steady. "I was a special warfare operator." The silence that followed was sharp, disbelieving. Hollis stared at her for a beat, then actually laughed out loud. "A SEAL? You?" He shook his head. "Lady, I don't know where you bought that thing, but you're not fooling anyone." "I'm not trying to fool anyone." "Then prove it." He reached forward suddenly, his fingers closing around her arm. "Because right now, you're violating federal law, and I'm not letting you walk around my campus pretending to be something you're not." Ava didn't resist. She just looked at his hand on her arm, then back at his face. "You should let go." "Or what?" Hollis tightened his grip, his confidence swelling with the attention. "You gonna call your SEAL buddies?" Before Ava could respond, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "What exactly is going on here?" The crowd parted slightly as a man stepped forward, older, silver-haired, dressed in civilian clothes, but carrying himself with unmistakable authority. His eyes moved quickly between Hollis and Ava, assessing, understanding. Hollis straightened slightly, still gripping Ava's arm. Sir, I'm handling a stolen valor situation. This woman is wearing a military medal she clearly didn't earn. The man's gaze shifted to Ava, lingering on the medal, then on her face. Something in his expression changed. Recognition, quiet and immediate. Let her go, he said, his voice calm but absolute. Hollis hesitated. Sir, I have authority to. I said let her go. And this time, there was no mistaking it. That wasn't a suggestion. Hollis released Ava's arm slowly, confusion flickering across his face as he turned fully toward the older man. And you are? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer to Ava, his posture shifting subtly into something that looked less like confrontation and more like respect. Lieutenant Commander Mercer, he said quietly. It's been a while. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Phones tilted higher. Whispers spread fast. Ava gave a small nod. Admiral Brennan. Hollis's face went pale. Admiral, Brennan turned toward him, and the weight of that gaze was enough to make the security guard take an involuntary step back. Rear Admiral William Brennan, retired. And the woman you just accused of stolen valor is one of the most decorated operators I've ever had the privilege of serving alongside. The quad fell silent. Every eye locked on the scene. Hollis stammered, trying to recover. I didn't know. She didn't show ID, didn't explain. She didn't know you an explanation, Brennan cut in, his voice hardening. You made an assumption based on nothing but your own bias, and you acted on it publicly. Ava remained seated, her expression unchanged, but something in her posture had shifted slightly, not defensive, just watchful, as if she had seen this play out before and knew exactly where it was headed. Brennan gestured toward the medal. Do you even know what that is? Hollis hesitated. A Navy Achievement Medal. And do you know what it takes to earn one? Silence. It's awarded for sustained meritorious service or specific acts of courage, Brennan continued. And Lieutenant Commander Mercer has earned not just one, but multiple commendations, including classifications you'll never be cleared to read about. A student in the crowd whispered to another. She's actually a SEAL? Brennan's gaze swept across the onlookers, his voice carrying now, deliberate and clear. She completed BUD/S training, served multiple deployments in hostile theaters, and performed operations that directly saved the lives of her teammates and countless others. She didn't wear that medal for attention. She wore it because she earned it. Hollis opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. Ava finally stood, her movements controlled and unhurried. She met Brennan's eyes briefly. Thank you, sir, but I can handle this. Brennan nodded. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. She turned to Hollis, her voice calm, but carrying a finality that made him flinch. You didn't ask questions. You didn't verify. You just decided I didn't fit your idea of what a service member looks like, and you acted on it. Hollis swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't undo what just happened, Ava said. But maybe it'll make you think twice next time before you assume someone isn't capable just because they don't look the way you expect. The security guard nodded stiffly, his earlier confidence completely shattered. Brennan placed a hand lightly on Ava's shoulder. Walk with me. They moved away from the crowd, leaving Hollis standing alone as students slowly began to disperse, their phones still out, the footage already spreading. When they were far enough away, Brennan spoke quietly. You didn't have to stay silent through that. I know, Ava said. But if I'd corrected him immediately, he wouldn't have learned anything. Sometimes people need to fail publicly before they understand what they did wrong. Brennan smiled faintly. Still teaching, even off the clock. Old habits. They walked in silence for a moment before he asked, What are you doing here? Finishing my degree. Trying to figure out what comes next. And wearing the medal. Ava glanced down at it. Meeting someone later. A kid who just lost her brother overseas. She needed to know she's not alone. Brennan's expression softened. You're still looking out for people. That part doesn't change, Ava said simply. He stopped, turning to face her fully. For what it's worth, you handled that better than most would have. I've had practice. That's the problem, Brennan said quietly. You shouldn't need it. Ava didn't respond, but the look in her eyes said she agreed. Brennan exhaled slowly. If you ever need anything, references, support, someone to remind the world who you are, You call me. I will, sir. He nodded once, then walked away, leaving Ava standing alone in the quiet corner of the quad. She looked down at the medal again, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. Then she tucked it beneath her hoodie, out of sight, and headed toward her next class. By the time Ava reached the student union that afternoon, the video had already gone viral. She saw it on a passing student's phone, herself sitting calm while Hollis grabbed her arm, Brennan stepping in, the crowd's stunned reaction. The comments were a mess of outrage, support, and disbelief. She ignored it and kept walking. The girl she was meeting sat at a corner table, hunched over a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Emily Carver, 19, dark circles under her eyes, wearing her brother's dog tags over a faded marine sweatshirt. She looked up when Ava approached, and something in her expression broke slightly. You came, Emily said quietly. I said I would. Ava sat down across from her, pulling the medal out from beneath her hoodie and letting it rest visible again. Your brother talked about you all the time. Emily's eyes dropped to the medal, then back to Ava's face. He never told me he knew a SEAL. He probably didn't want you to worry more than you already were. A faint, sad smile. That sounds like him. They talked for over an hour. Ava didn't offer platitudes or try to fix anything. She just listened, shared stories when it felt right, and let Emily know that grief didn't have a timeline and strength didn't mean not breaking. When they finally stood to leave, Emily hesitated. What happened earlier in the quad? I saw the video. Ava's expression didn't change. It's fine. It's not fine, Emily said, her voice stronger now. But the way you handled it, I don't know. It made me realize something. What's that? That you don't have to be loud to be strong. Ava gave a small nod. Your brother knew that too. Emily wiped her eyes quickly. Thank you. For this. For him. Anytime. As Ava walked back across campus later that evening, the sun dipping low and casting long shadows across the quad, she passed the same bench where everything had happened earlier. A small group of students sat nearby, talking in low voices. One of them glanced up and recognized her. Hey, the student said, standing. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for not stepping in earlier. Ava stopped, surprised. You don't owe me an apology. Maybe not, the student said. But I should have said something. We all should have. Another student nodded. We didn't know, but that's not really an excuse. Ava studied them for a moment, then gave a slight smile. Then next time, ask questions before you assume. That's all anyone can do. The students nodded, the weight of the moment settling in. Ava continued walking, and as she reached the edge of campus, her phone buzzed. A message from Brennan. Proud of you. Always have been. She typed back. Thank you, sir. Then she slipped the phone into her pocket, pulled her hoodie tighter against the evening chill, and headed home. The medal still hung around her neck, quiet and unassuming. She had earned it in places most people would never see, doing things most people would never fully understand. And she didn't need anyone's validation to know that. But as she walked through the fading light, she realized something else. The fight wasn't just about being recognized. It was about making sure the next person, the next woman, the next service member who didn't fit the mold wouldn't have to prove themselves the same way. And that fight, she knew, was one she'd keep showing up for. Because some battles aren't won with force. They're won with presence, with persistence, with refusing to disappear just because someone else can't see you. Ava Mercer had spent years learning how to be invisible when it mattered. But she had also learned when it was time to be seen. And tonight, walking across that quiet campus with her head high and her story finally told, she chose both.